my head, like this is a whirlwind, like I'm so excited, like fired up, you know what I mean? Like this is new opportunity, whatever. And you could just tell the energy was off. Like I dapped him up, he had like a blank face. The Ravens guys called me and was like, yo, we're trying to figure this out, you know, we're gonna get this done, don't worry. Like 5 minutes later, CJ calls me, it's like, they're backing out. I'm like, holy shit. So I'm like frozen, I'm like, what the f? I'm livid, confused, the whole nine all in one. It's for a reason, I know exactly who I am, I'm healthy, I'm crushing my rehab, I'm doing what I'm doing. I wasn't supposed to be in Baltimore. And that's it. You know what I mean? I'm meant to be a Raider. It's through my damn core. And that's it. You know what I mean? I'll leave it simple as that.
Okay, Lewis, a lot to take from that clip. What's your reaction, your first reaction when you hear from Maxx Crosby and just some of the honesty there?
It's amazing how important first impressions are, isn't it? Whether you're dealing with someone just on a personal basis, you know, out in public, or you're dealing with someone when it comes to business. And Max could tell right away that something was off with this. Obviously, he's talking about Eric DaCosta, about the way in which he kind of greeted him. You know, Max, when he talked about on that podcast about the long flight, the drive from D.C. up to Baltimore, the fact that he really didn't feel like he was really being like courted, like treated like someone who a team had just given up 2 first-round picks for. And look, I know I've been involved in these kind of situations to where when you're bringing in a player who you really covet and you've given up a lot for, you treat him like a king. You treat him like someone who is going to be a premium primetime player for you. You don't have blank looks on your face. The GM doesn't wait 5 hours until that person has stepped in the building to then go ahead and introduce themselves. That's not how you conduct business like that. And you feel bad for Max because this was a big situation for him. Moving across country, moving your family across country after you have spent your entire career at one place is a big deal. So you should be kind of afforded that kind of respect. So that's number one. Number two, I think when you hear him talk about the fact that he is happy, or rather, I shouldn't say happy, he feels as though he was born to be a Raider and that he's a Raider through and through. I can speak to that. I don't know how it is now out there in Vegas, but I can tell you this. When the team was in Alameda and we were playing in the Oakland Coliseum and guys like Lester Hayes and Mike Haynes and Matt Millen and Fred Biletnikoff and those guys were coming around, and Jack Tatum and George Atkinson, you know what it felt like to be an old school Raider. And it is a sense of pride that is hard to really put into words. And Max has all that. He has all that. You can tell he has it. And you just kind of feel bad for the guy considering everything that he's overcome in his life, in his career, that he had to go through this in the first place. I hope he winds up staying in Las Vegas, to be honest with you. He deserves to be a Raider from beginning to end.
I bet you the Ravens wish that Maxx Crosby didn't have his own podcast. Like you were kind of saying.
About that.
This is a bad look for Baltimore. At least if Max's side of the story is real and true, and we have no reason to think it's not, it's a bad look for Baltimore. I'll kind of flip it forward. I think one, because there's probably a lot of question marks still of like, okay, what is his knee actually like?
Yeah.
We'll know, I would imagine, because if the Raiders decide to hold him.
They're saying it's all on track. That's coming from the surgeon that we know is very credible.
Right. And so I would imagine if the Raiders are going to continue to hold on to Maxx Crosby and not move him, that they've got to be confident that he's going to get healthy and get back to the type of player he was. Or if they're going to be overly aggressive in moving him, maybe they have their own doubts. So I think we'll have a little bit of an understanding as this goes. I think the second part is, how does this non-trade impact their timeline in Las Vegas? Because they are without 2 first-round picks that they were thinking they were going to have. And so after all that free agency spending, it was kind of like, could they get competitive in the next year or so? Now without those 2 picks, how do they pivot, at least from what their plan was in the now and maybe in the next 6 to 12 months?
Adam, we're all kind of feeling this way that maybe it does make more sense for Maxx Crosby to stay in Vegas. What more can you tell us about what you're hearing about his future there?
Yeah. Laura, look, there are a lot of options out there. There are a lot of ways they still can go, but the overwhelming way that it looks like it's trending and tracking right now is for Maxx Crosby to remain a Las Vegas Raider. The trade talk started when he didn't want to be there anymore. And now he himself is saying on his podcast that he does want to be there, that he wants to be a Raider for life. And as long as he wants to be there, and other teams wouldn't be willing to give up what Baltimore was in light of what happened here in the last week with the medicals, then clearly the overwhelming likely path here is for him to stay in Las Vegas. He goes back there. This team is tracking with the arrow pointing up right now. Spent a lot of money in free agency, have the number 1 overall draft pick expected to be Fernando Mendoza, have some weapons on offense, and Maxx Crosby obviously would help this team get to the next level. The other added bonus to going back to Las Vegas, and people don't point this out, by coming back from Baltimore to Las Vegas, Maxx Crosby saved over $10 million on his contract because there's no state tax in Nevada. He should be thrilled that he's back there right now because he just made millions by essentially not passing the physical. It works out very well for him, for the Raiders, while the Baltimore Ravens go their own way.
Yeah, look at this. I mean, here you go, Max. It's working out better than you thought. I do think, Adam, he probably decides he doesn't really want to be traded when he looks at some of those moves that you're referencing that the Raiders made. It makes sense. They look like a much better team than they were when he even got traded. And if you're here for the pettiness of all this, the Raiders do not play the Ravens next season. Unfortunately, we will not see that. All right, let's check in. That's true. All right, Dan. Let's check in on a Miami team that's signaling they're ready for a rebuild, moving on from key pieces. The latest being star wideout Jalen Waddle, who's headed to Denver, a major hit to the Dolphins' offense, a big boost for that Broncos passing attack. Let's check in on them and hear a little bit more from Jalen Waddle himself now in Denver.
I think I'm just bringing another playmaker to the team, someone that can help out and, try to make plays to the best of my ability. It's going to be a fun group. They got a lot of talent, Court, Marv, Troy, Pat, Lil Jordan. I'm here to help in every, fashion, making plays and learning. I'm excited to learn from them and them to learn from me. So it should be fun. It should be great.
Hey, Waddle's been one of the most productive receivers in the NFL over the last 4 seasons, averaging 10 yards per target. That's the best in the NFL among 26 players with at least 400 targets since 2022. Last season, the Broncos receivers averaged 9th fewest yards, per target. You can see the difference in the instant boost that Jalen Waddle will add. Dan, what can the addition of Waddle bring to this Broncos passing game that felt like this is kind of the one piece they needed to solidify?
Yeah, explosive pass plays, and it's really the part of their offense that I would tell you was the weakest element. Waddle is a complete receiver. I don't want to just paint him as just a vertical threat. He could run all routes, middle of the field, in breakers, catch the ball, do something with it in the yards after the catch game, absolutely. But he is a vertical threat as well. His ability to make the big explosive plays down the field is absolutely one of his strengths. And I would sit here and tell you, as much as I've liked watching Denver's offense, and there's been this evolution under Sean Payton that it's sprinkled a little bit of like the college element in, it hasn't looked like I expected it to in totality when it comes to like the Saints stuff, which was notorious for the play action chunks, the 20 to 25 yard big throws, and then the big ball down the field. This answers that. They haven't had that guy that was consistently going to be that. Jalen Waddle is. This was a very, very good football team. This was the one spot you can truly make a case they didn't have. They do now.
Yeah, Lewis, when you think about the other receivers they have on this roster in that group, how does Waddle mesh with what those guys look like on the field?
Well, the cool thing about it is that they're all interchangeable. You'll see Cortland Sutton playing the slot. He'll play the X and the Z. You'll see Jalen Waddle. He can play the slot, the X. Troy Franklin can play the slot, the X to Z. Marvin Mims, he's a catch and run guy, a guy who's just explosive with the ball in his hands. Pat Bryant, he's a big physical slot player who really is kind of like, some of the wide receivers that Sean Payton had when he was in New Orleans. Think of guys like Marcus Colston, who really just chewed people up with a bigger body on the inside. So what Jalen brings you is in a different package. He brings you that same versatility, but he has the juice down the field. I mean, the guy has legit, when you're standing there as a secondary player, you're going, where's 17? And if I'm one-on-one with him in any way, shape, or form, you're looking, what leverage do I have and where's my help? What leverage do I need to take and where's my help? And what that winds up doing is it winds up making you get distracted with everyone else, and it's just going to open up the entire offense. And if they can get the run game going, if Davis Webb now as the new play caller can get the run game going, the play action passing game is going to get going, as Dan just alluded to, the Broncos are going to level up big time.
Yeah, Lou, this is how I think they're going to use him. He's going to play the slot for them initially. They'll move him out sometimes to the Z, but he's going to play slot for Denver, and they're going to utilize him there. And if we remember back in the day, Sean Payton was in New Orleans when they traded for Brian